Hello and welcome everybody to another edition of the Penn's Iceberg. I'm your host Casey Stamp, alongside, as always, my partner Luke Courtwright. How you doing tonight, Luke?
Pretty good. Would have been better after a win, but what are you gonna do?
A point's a point, I guess, in the shootout. We do have a great show for you guys tonight. We're going to start off with game analysis of the Penguins and the Canadiens. Then we're going to talk about the latest as far as the situation goes on Sidney Crosby. We're going to talk about some possible trade deadline moves that Ray Shero could be looking to make, and we're going to finish up, as always, with some game predictions. So we've got a fantastic show coming your way. Stay tuned. Welcome back. The Pittsburgh Penguins took on the Montreal Canadiens tonight at the Bell Center in Montreal, looking to sweep the season series from the Montreal Canadiens for the first time in Penn's history. First period wide open action, but nothing doing on the score sheet. Partner, it appeared that some of the Pens looked a bit tired, slow moving at times, especially that first line. Do you think that was due to them not participating in the morning skate and trying to get their rhythm in the game?
Well, coming down the stretch here, every team is playing a similarly tough schedule. Lots of back-to-backs, even the odd 3 games in 4 days like we've had here with the Penguins. Maintenance day has become the popular term here. Guys are going to get the rest, and honestly, they need it. We've seen it plenty of times this season, and with these games being so close together, it kind of necessitates it. Montreal was coming off, this was their 3rd game in 4 days too, so it's really tough to use that as an excuse. They came out and put on a snoozer early. I don't know if I can really blame this on the morning skate, because we've seen that plenty of times already this year.
Absolutely, and it seemed like a lot of neutral zone play. No one could really get full control of the puck in the first period, but in the second, more of the same to begin with. But a couple power play chances for the Pens. Montreal would actually end up dominating our power play unit and getting a few really nice shorthanded chances. Luke, what do you suppose was the issue tonight with the power play unit? Maybe just miscommunication, or what do you think it was?
Well, the key cogs for the Penguins power play were all over the place, and when you combine that with the fact that Montreal coming into this game, their PK was clicking at 89.9%, which is remarkable in this day and age, and number 1 in the NHL. All down the right side boards, they were denying passes, really neutralizing Yevgeny Malkin. We saw James Neal kind of roam around the ice trying to find a sweet spot to open up a shot for him, but you look at his one prime scoring chance that he had, that was all the way at the top of the left circle, which is not where he's accustomed to scoring his goals. And then looking at the points without their safety plays going to Malkin, going to Neal, they kind of fumbled the puck a little bit, and we saw a lot of odd man rushes going the other way, and culminating with this Louis LeBlanc goal here.
And certainly shorthanded Fleury made some incredible stops, and as you mentioned, at 11:21 of the second period, Louis LeBlanc would score the first goal of the game, assisted by Andrei Kosditsyn and Chris Campoli. And the third, Joe Vitale shot a puck kind of at a sharp angle, deflected off the skate of Pascal Dupuis, tying the game at 1. And partner, we heard Tony Granato say coming into that third period that the Penguins needed to get more pucks on net, even sharp angle shots, just to get rebounds. Do you think that the Pens executed their game plan well in the third?
Definitely. You look at Carey Price, he played a really solid game and was staying with the shooters, not really making the first move. So when you have a goalie really clicking on their fundamentals, sometimes the best route is to kind of use the element of surprise, really catch them off guard. Set some screens, just play a straight line game, keep pucks low and get them on net. And this Dupuis goal was the perfect example of that. The Pens were able to work hard. Joe Vitale beeline on the right side. Dupuis crashes the net. That's how you draw it up.
Absolutely, and that's exactly what you need to do. You need to go to the net hard, and a lot of times good things will happen. But minutes after the Vitale goal, Lars Eller would score on a borderline freakish goal. Fleury thought perhaps he dumped the puck into the sideboards, and that's kind of where he was looking. He just lost sight of the puck, and when he finally found it, unfortunately, it was in the back of the net. Fleury's only mistake in a game where otherwise he just played very, very well. James Neal would score at 7:32 of the third to tie the game at 2, and that would ultimately end the scoring in the third period. So once again, the Pens and the Habs going to overtime. No scoring in overtime, but we had a pretty interesting exchange between Chris Letang and PK Subban at the end of overtime. Luke, take us through what happened there.
Well, PK Subban is a pretty annoying human being. That's pretty much what happened there. As any aggressive, borderline dirty player, if you want to go that far, as far as that, what they're going to do, you're going to take as many hits on Malkin as you can get. He got a little bit of a running start on Malkin, not to the point that it was charging. Malkin had the puck in his feet. And then you have Matthew Darch coming in, giving Malkin a bit of a knock too. But I think Chris Letang saw Subban kind of taking some liberties maybe. So he jumps in before it can go any further. I thought in this game there were a few really great physical battles going on. We saw Eric Cole and Brooks Orpik going head to head several times. Obviously they have a pretty long history there. And it was a really fun game to watch.
They're going to have to come up with a name for exactly what Chris Letang did there. It was kind of like one of those diving clothesline type of deals. I don't even really know what you call that, but I'm pretty sure Troy Polamalu would have been proud of it. Evgeny Malkin and Chris Kunitz both managed to score shootout goals in the shootout, but it was Montreal getting 3 shootout goals from Rene Bourque, Lars Eller, and ultimately Tomasz Plekanec to win the game 3-2 and avoid the series sweep. All right, folks, we're going to take a short break, and when we get back, we're going to have the latest on Sidney Crosby for you. Stay tuned. Welcome back. The latest on Sidney Crosby. Where we left off last time in the show, it was still believed to be just fully concussion symptoms that he was suffering. Reports came out about a couple weeks back, maybe, that Tom Brady had some contact with Sidney Crosby, and Tom Brady's wife suggested that Sidney Crosby go see a doctor in Utah and get CAT scans and see if there was other problems. I suppose that this doctor had been working with Tom for years. Ultimately, they gave him CAT scans, they gave him MRIs, found that there was soft tissue damage in the neck, at which point he went to California to get treatment from a spinal specialist in California. Since he's been back home, now he held a press conference, him and Ray Shero, to kind of address the media and really take questions. They didn't directly state that the symptoms were only due to the soft tissue damage in the back of the neck and the C1 and C2 vertebrae, though symptoms that come with that type of injury are commonly associated with concussion symptoms. So no really telling exactly what caused the symptoms, whether it indeed was concussion symptoms or if it was simply the abnormalities to those vertebrae. Sid got a shot, one-time shot, I guess, in the neck. He says he's been feeling a bit better lately. He's definitely been looking great in the skates. Yesterday he joined his teammates in the morning skate. First time he's practiced with the team in quite a while, but ramping up the intensity of his workouts and his skates. And what do you make of this recent progress and kind of everything that's been spiraling around in the last 3 weeks or so?
Yeah, the mystery continues. We've heard Crosby going to California. We've heard Ron Burkle and Mario Lemieux accompanying him to different doctors. So it's still shrouded in mystery, and I'm still not entirely sure what to make of it. I think it's definitely promising that we've seen him skating with the team now, albeit in a non-contact manner. I think things are definitely looking upwards here. Seeing everyone participating in the skate, it seems like. I would think that now we know that there was potentially another problem there. Going forward, that can only mean good things, because if everything's targeted, then we'll have an easier way of solving all of Sidney Crosby's problems.
Absolutely. And when Crosby was back for a short time, we went 5-1-1 with Crosby in the lineup, so certainly looking forward to having him back. At this point, it's all speculation. Again, Sid doesn't even have the answers for himself right now, so it's tough to speculate when he'll be back. I've heard different stories. I've heard before the trade deadline, after the trade deadline, right before the playoffs. I think best bet would be cautious optimism on the part of the fans here. Definitely the developments that have been happening lately, I think, are probably a good thing, but you still do have to be cautious because he's not coming back until he's symptom-free. And if you're under the impression that he's going to come back anytime soon and he doesn't even know the answers yet, well, that could not pan out. But as you mentioned, Luke, the other teammates are skating as well. Jordan Stahl and Simone Dupre back in non-contact practices as well. According to Josh Yohe of the Trib, he said that Stahl is looking very strong in the skates and in the practices. He said that he thinks he could be back maybe as soon as the weekend. Certainly, it would be a really great thing to have Stahl back on that second line. A huge boost for the Pens, and obviously, whenever Sid can come back, that is just going to be so invaluable, especially at the end of the year here and going into the playoffs. All right, folks, but we're going to take a short break, and when we get back, we're going to talk about some possible trade deadline moves that Ray Shero could make, so stay tuned. Welcome back with the trade deadline just a few weeks away. Lots of speculation about who the Pittsburgh Penguins could be looking to acquire. Are they buyers? Are they sellers? Are they going to stand pat? And really just a lot of different opinions from a lot of different angles. Luke, what are some of the most prominent trade talks that you've heard about concerning the Pittsburgh Penguins?
Well, I think the most prominent one has to be potentially bringing back Hal Gill. Saw him tonight with Montreal. There's obviously a great rapport there. Won a Stanley Cup with the Penguins a few seasons ago. Like comfort zone, he would slide in nicely on the third pairing. That would unfortunately bump Derek Engelland out of the lineup, but I think you can argue that Hal Gill would be an upgrade at this point. And as far as the kind of act that you would have to give up, I don't think it would necessarily be breaking the bank. The Penguins are in a situation now where they have a good stable of young defensemen coming up through the ranks. You look at Robert Bortuzzo and Brian Straight in particular. Going in next season, they're both going to have to clear waivers to be sent down to the minors. So I think this is definitely the time where you look at dealing one of them, if not both of them, if there are no long-term plans for them.
Obviously, we've heard so many different pieces of speculation who to acquire. We've heard everything from Hal Gill to Andre Kosditsyn to Tuomo Ruutu, who apparently has said somewhere that he would want $5 million to re-sign. I gotta wonder, does Tuomo Ruutu? He's a fantastic player. Don't get me wrong, but wow, I mean, does he really think he's going to make $5 million?
On the open market, you never know.
I guess maybe one of those teams trying to get to the cap floor. But at this point, Luke, what do you think the Pens really need? What is their key need going into the playoffs?
I think they're definitely going to be looking at someone with some size, whether it be up front or on the back end. Even up front, they have a lot of grit, but they don't have a lot of big grit. And ever since Mike Rupp left in the offseason, I think that's been something they've been missing. But looking at kind of what's out there now, I don't really see a whole lot of size up they could really inject in the lineup. Look at maybe a guy like Tim Jackman in Calgary. He has some size. He can department, but he only has one goal this season, so you're not really adding a whole lot there. The one wild card for me here is looking at the Buffalo Sabres. They went into the season with a lot of expectations. Paul Gaustad, who is going to be an unrestricted free agent this summer, great face-off man, has a lot of size, is incredibly physical. I think he would be a great guy to add. Obviously, the Penguins have a lot of depth at center, but can always slot guys around. I don't know if they're necessarily going to go in that direction. I think Hal Gill, and it would not shock me to see him back in the black and gold.
And, talking about the Pittsburgh Penguins, a lot of the guys being thrown around in the trade rumors leaving Pittsburgh, I think first and foremost, the one that I've heard, and I've got to say, not at the trade deadline, but maybe in the offseason, a lot of Paul Martin talk that we've heard. And obviously, it's because of the $5 million in salary he makes. It takes up a lot of salary. Some people feel that he's worth the money. Some people feel that he's not worth the money. It's a huge debate going on right now. A couple other guys being thrown around in talks here have been Eric Tangrady. He was scratched the other day from a game in Wilkes-Barre. It turns out to be back spasms, but some speculation flying around earlier that night that perhaps he had been traded. And Tyler Kennedy also being talked about as perhaps someone that we could ship out. If we do decide to make a move like that, which Penguin do you think might be going the other way?
Well, like I touched on before, I think Straight and Bortuzzo. I think if the Penguins are going to look to move someone, it could very well be one of those two guys, because I do think they have some value here. Both of them have been kind of banged up this year, so we weren't able to see a whole lot of what they were able to do in Pittsburgh. But from a defensive standpoint, they do have some value, and I'm not sure that there's room for both of them in Pittsburgh. So I think one of those two definitely. It seems like Ben Lovejoy is getting kind of squeezed out here in the event that they do bring in another defenseman. With Tyler Kennedy being injured, they can't really move him right now, even if they do. Jury's still out on what exactly the extent of his injury is. Tangrady, I do not think it would be wise to move him at this point. It's just one of those things where the bigger guys, it takes them a little longer to kind of put it together. I'm not the biggest Tangrady supporter, but I'm also not incredibly against Tangrady. I think he's one of those guys you just need to give some time. He really has progressed. People might be a little frustrated that they see younger players rising up through the ranks at a little bit faster speed than him, but he's definitely on the right track here, I think.
And, he's definitely got upside. He's definitely got potential. Some people argue that he doesn't get enough minutes, and the counter argument to that is often that, well, he needs to prove his minutes on the fourth line, that he's worth it. And again, that's one of the other great debates going on throughout Pittsburgh. Ales Hemsky, a guy that was talked about for a while as well. He was talked about a little last year. He's been thrown around in not just Penguins trade talks, but in trade talks in general for a few years. Obviously very injury prone. Could have been a winger for Sid, but who knows at this point. All right, folks, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we've got some game prediction for you. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Saturday night, the Pittsburgh Penguins will be back at the Consol Energy Center to take on the Winnipeg Jets in the first game of a back-to-back. Winnipeg, it's always good to see the Winnipeg Jets in action. For Penguins fans, they haven't had too much experience with Winnipeg being back in the league yet, so it's always fun when a new team comes to town. Luke, what do you see in this game with Winnipeg?
Well, I breathe a sigh of relief that they will be in Pittsburgh and not Winnipeg, because there is a significant discrepancy between Winnipeg's home and away record. Of course, we saw them earlier in the season in Winnipeg and kind of a raucous atmosphere, fans really into it. However, with this game being in Pittsburgh, I can only see the Penguins winning this game. Even with so many skilled players out, they still can kind of overwhelm Winnipeg here. So I'm going to say a 3-1 victory, Penguins. And certainly the MTS Center has become one of the more difficult places to play in terms of just fan noise and fan appreciation for the team. Obviously, they were just all very, very happy to have their team back. And hey, you know what? They're doing well. I mean, they're right there knocking at the door. Possibly, if they put a few games together and then maybe put together a stretch, they could win that Southeast Division. It's a very close division this year. Speaking of the Southeast Division, the Pittsburgh Penguins on Sunday will be taking on the Tampa Bay Lightning. Luke, Malkin hat trick last time, third period to win the game for the Pens. What do you think will happen this time around? Well, we'll see what Vincent Lecavalier thinks this time around. With this being another back-to-back game, I would anticipate seeing Brent Johnson in this game. He's been kind of up and down the season, not really sure what to expect from him. But however, looking at any of the teams in the Southeast Division, honestly, Penguins really, this is another game they should win. This is a game they kind of need to win, really beat up on some of these teams. Of course, we've got that 1-3-1 to deal with, but the Penguins have shown that they can deal with it. Oh, I'm going to say another 3-1 Penguins victory.
Well, of course, Tampa's defensive struggles well documented this year, and hopefully the Penguins will be able to take advantage of that, and certainly hopefully LeCavalier can hold off on the cheap shots this time around. All right, folks, that's going to do it for us from the Pens Iceberg tonight. We thank you so much for tuning in. As always, Luke, it's been such a pleasure, and we'll meet right back with you here next week.
All right, sounds good.
All right, from everyone at the Iceberg, I'm your host, Casey Stamp. Have a great night and a great week.